Globalisation has been the biggest factor in the success and failure of organisations for at least 2 decades, and its impact will not be abating anytime soon. The world market economy is constantly evolving, and the rules are continuously changing, and we either engage with its opportunities and risks, or we fall victim to them. Our most powerful weapon for both engaging with the opportunities of globalisation and for defending ourselves against its risks is our ability to collaborate effectively with people across international distances. But even in this space, technology, ecology, sociology and the economy are combining to change the rules, and if we're to stay in the game, we need to change our approach to match. And the way we do meetings will be a key factor in whether we can make that change. This map, created by the OECD, shows in billions of dollars the international flow of intermediate goods, both within regions, albeit still across international boundaries, and between regions. The total figure you can see here is just over $6,000 billion, and that is not for finished goods and services. It is for intermediate goods and services, in other words, goods and services that still need to be configured into a product. Goods and services that another organisation in another country is dependent on for their own output and productivity. In other words, $6,000 billion worth of business critical transactions. And the figure is growing annually, doubling every 5 years, so you can multiply by at least 2 the figures on this map for current day interdependencies. Increasingly, international transactions represent our best hope of finding best cost solutions, of exploiting new technology, and of seeking new markets for our work. So much so that in a recent survey of managers across 50 organisations, over half of their work was dependent on people who worked at a distance from them. And that means that in all probability, at least half of the issues that they need to solve, or the opportunities that they need to engage with, are also at a distance from them. And they have 2 possible mechanisms to engage themselves with those issues and opportunities. They either need to travel, or they need to use some form of technology to communicate with the people involved. But the balance of effectiveness is not quite as equal as this diagram might indicate, and the reality is that they believe they can achieve far greater influence over the outcome if they are there in person than if they're trying to do things via a telephone or computer screen or a video link of some kind. So much so, in fact, that they are willing to spend an average of £20,000, 34 tonnes of carbon, and almost 900 hours away from home and office every year in order to achieve the required level of control over the situation. That is over £14 billion per annum in the UK alone, and an estimated $650 billion worldwide. And in a time of economic austerity, and of increased ecological awareness, and of seeking to achieve better work-life balance, these are not good figures, particularly in the light that the demand effectively quadruples every decade. Fortunately, however, many organisations are increasingly aware of the issue and are trying to cap the expenditure in this area. The problem for most managers, though, is that they believe that while they may save money on their travel budget, the consequential risks of delays in solving the problem or less effective strategies to exploit the opportunities actually outweigh those savings by a factor of 3 on average. And while that may be a hidden cost, and it may take time to show, eventually it will come to account. It is true that for many managers, travel is one of the benefits of their role, but not at the levels that are currently demanded. And on average, managers believe that they would halve their travel if they felt there was a way to be as effective through technology as they can be in person. And so that needs to be the real question here. Not how do we limit travel, but how do we utilise the technology-based options more effectively? How do we get managers to willingly make the choice to use that technology more frequently, and through this, not only to halve their travel costs and to generate large financial, time and ecological savings, but also to provide an avenue that can actually increase the frequency and effectiveness of contact above the current levels, that can make it easy for them to network more widely than they would consider when travel was the only viable option, and that can provide a platform for more creative engagement of people and their ideas. That is what the question should be, but to answer it, we really need to begin by understanding how it currently falls short of the mark. To begin this exploration, let us contrast these two channels for engaging people at a distance. The panel on the left we will use to look at the mechanism of physical meetings through travel, and the panel on the right we will use to look at the mechanism of virtual meetings through technology. It is sadly true that virtual meetings are significantly less effective than their physical counterparts. In an analysis of actual web-based meetings that managers had been involved in, participants felt that while the best ones could almost be as good as an average physical meeting, the worst ones could on occasion be counterproductive. And while the balance was slightly toward the better ones, the overall average was about half the effectiveness of an average physical meeting. And actually, that is not a particularly high base for comparison, because our experience with physical meetings is that they are not particularly effective in the first place. A survey of meetings across 60 organisations, of people attending the meetings, showed that failure of physical meetings due to preparation or participation issues was relatively commonplace, and that 40% of meetings arose because preceding meetings failed to achieve what was required, and 40% of meetings existed only to chase progress because people could not otherwise be relied on to deliver what they promised. Hopefully there is some overlap between those two things, but even a conservative interpretation would indicate that our average physical meeting is less than 50% effective. That is an horrendous figure, and would not be tolerated in virtually any other key organisational process. But the reason it is tolerated is because it is largely unknown. Most organisations have no metrics at all of meeting performance, and in 2/3 of organisations, even individual meeting performance is rarely or never reviewed. Our approach to meetings is unmeasured, largely unmanaged, and seriously deficient. And part of the issue that we have with our approach to virtual meetings is that we have simply carried across a deeply flawed method from the physical realm to the virtual realm with very little thought about how it might be done differently. In both cases, the prevalent, almost exclusive mechanisms for conducting the meeting are presentation and debate, as you can see in this chart of the functionality used in web-based meetings. The dark blue representing the proportion of use is almost exclusively within presentation mechanisms such as slideshows and application sharing. Perhaps the question that springs to your mind at this point is, so what else are meetings supposed to be other than presentation and debate? Our paradigm of meetings, the way we see them play out, tends to constrain our thinking to the way they traditionally take place. But there is a growing market for a different type of meeting in situations where success is high profile and needs to be assured. These events are typically off-site and externally facilitated, but they recognise the importance of engagement in developing commitment to the outcomes and utilise a variety of participative mechanisms to achieve it. The meetings survey we referred to earlier also examined perceptions on the relative effectiveness of these types of meetings, and you can see from the chart that they were seen as almost universally more effective across a range of meeting effectiveness measures, from alignment to commitment, and with a marked improvement in the area of creativity. The irony is that the mechanisms which off-site meetings use to deliver this impact are actually easier to set up and run within a virtual meeting than they are within a physical meeting. And so there is every reason to imagine that virtual meetings should be more effective than an average physical meeting. But that isn't so. And the reason for this is shown on a chart we saw earlier. For while the mechanisms are easy to set up, most people are totally unaware of the functionality which can deliver those mechanisms. If you look at the white areas of the chart, over half of all respondents were largely oblivious even to the existence of the range of web-based functionality which supports more participative approaches to meetings. But actually, that is not that surprising, because 2/3 of those managers who are setting up and running web-based meetings have received no training at all in how to do it. In many organizations, the facility has simply been set up, people have been allocated their accounts and sign-in details, and then they have simply been left to get on with it. This is a surprising omission for a process which is so fundamental to the effectiveness of an organization, and which is undergoing such a dramatic change in how it takes place. As a result, the vast majority of managers feel that they have need of further training in at least some aspect of how to conduct web-based meetings. But before we leap at this, it's important to see in this diagram that for the training to be effective, it needs to cover not only the technical transition from physical to virtual, but also to equip people for the process paradigm transition from traditional chalk and talk to more participative mechanisms of engagement. It needs to give managers the confidence in retaining overall control of the meeting while providing autonomy for the collaboration within it. It needs to reset their understanding of what a meeting actually might be, because their paradigm is currently constrained by their experience of physical meetings, and they see web-based meetings as an inferior subset within that. But the truth is that the marriage of the power of technology with the breadth of the internet and the creative flair of web designers means that what you can practically achieve in a web-based meeting is almost limitless. And while it may still have its issues, and practicality dictates that we need to work within certain boundaries, those boundaries are still much further out than most people realize, and they are being extended further every day. We contend that there is more than enough already in the space between current paradigms and the limit of proven practical solutions that it is crucial we exploit this learning as quickly as possible. There is a danger here that you may see this space as simply delivering the full potential of your preferred web meeting solution, whatever that may be. But unlike physical meetings, web-based meetings are not constrained by the limitations of being in one place at one time, and so we should not think that our boundaries are set by our core choice of software. While the core meeting software may provide a valuable spine for our meetings, there are many more creative collaboration options that can either be integrated into our core meeting software or used in parallel with it. Options which provide particular tools or enhanced functionality or project room type spaces. And we do not need to be constrained by the idea that interaction is synchronous verbal communication or feel hampered by the audio limitations of our core software, since there are numerous options for interaction support, including knowledge-based tools and the possibility of instant language translation. But key to getting the best out of this wide range of tools is the development of a process which harnesses the available functionality to the organizational goals through the engagement and interaction of people, and a culture which best supports people in utilizing the new potential and rapidly addresses any behaviors which might undermine people seeing the results of their efforts. In short, web-based collaboration is so much more than simply uploading web meeting software and exhorting people to get on and use it. It requires new skills for the leaders who are going to design and facilitate the collaborations that take place, and also for the participants who are going to ensure that they can offer the best of their ideas, experience and commitment at a time and in a form that is going to be of most use to their colleagues. And it requires an environment that is both supportive and in tune with what it needs to do to best realize the new opportunities that web-based collaboration offers it. And the fact is that we do not have all this at the moment, and it is going to require training of some sort to get there efficiently. And while training does incur some unavoidable financial and time costs, the benefits are so great that the costs may not even show up on the balance sheet. That might seem a little strange, but let us have a look at the benefits in more detail. Effective utilization of the potential of web-based collaboration directly impacts 4 areas. The first 2 are encapsulated in our strapline, a world of possibility. Powerful web-based meeting processes enable you to efficiently engage with the right people at the right time, wherever they are located in the world, even if it is just for 5 minutes. And this focused approach makes it possible to include people and inputs that would be impractical with conventional approaches. And the creative possibilities that are immediately available in web-based meeting technology massively expands your options for how those people are involved, for the flavour that they will bring to your meeting, and for where that is best brought into the mix. You are no longer constrained to presentation and debate to arrive at the right decision, and as a result you are better able to reflect a process which ensures that all of the relevant inputs are not only considered, but also seen to be considered, and where people can develop their commitment to the outcome through full and active participation in how it was generated. Reflecting the power of off-site workshops for bringing people together and inspiring them to take more innovative perspectives, but without the associated costs or difficulties. As a result, management will not need to do the 50% of their travel that they currently undertake because of the weaknesses in web-based meetings, and we can expect to realise the cost, carbon and time savings that we talked about earlier. But more than this, we can expect to see the combination of more creative approaches with motivated people who believe in these ideas lead to powerful solutions and products that are delivered with passion and conviction. We can expect to see the combination of more effective meetings and better decision-making methods deliver improved management performance. And we can expect to see the extended reach that is possible combined with more accurate decision-making to make the organisation as a whole better equipped to deliver its purpose and vision. And we can expect all of this to impact the triple bottom line through customers who benefit from better solutions and committed service, employees whose level of motivation and engagement ensure their satisfaction and retention, and through shareholders who benefit from all of this and also from the cost savings of reduced travel. How much so? Well, the truth is that we haven't the faintest idea. We believe that all of these things will happen, and to enormous impact, but we have no data to directly link the adoption of better web-based meetings to increased sales, for instance. And even if we did have, the connections would be sufficiently ambiguous that a skeptic could easily challenge our assumptions. But the real benefit of the proposed approach to web-based meetings is that we don't have to justify them in this way, because the cost savings alone are more than sufficient to justify the investment. In fact, a conservative calculation would indicate that ignoring everything except the hard benefits, payback will occur within the quarter, and the ROI will be over 400%. And that is the small stuff. But all of this is based on average data across a relatively small sample of 50 organisations. And just because it is true for them does not mean that it is true for you. Every chart you have seen so far in this presentation is a generic average, and we have no idea whether these figures are valid for your organisation. We simply suspect that they are, based on the laws of probability. Furthermore, unless you currently have contrasting data that shows they do not apply to your organisation, then the smart money would go with us, because even if they are only partly true for you, they still represent a huge opportunity to save costs, improve CSR, and drive up performance. However, we do believe that average data is not, and should not be, sufficient in itself to drive such a commitment. You will need your own data to establish your own business case, set your priorities within that, and objectively manage your progress in achieving the benefits. And we have something to help you get that data. Out of our work to research the situation, we have developed an easy-to-use survey tool to develop a complete picture of your situation. And because we are still gathering data to expand our understanding, if you are willing to allow us to use your data, albeit anonymously, for looking at industry and geographic trends, then we can provide you with a free report for your own organisation. The report is very comprehensive and will be sufficient for you to develop your strategy for moving forward and to work out where training will best support you in that. And we also have metrics which will enable you to monitor your progress against your starting position and to manage your strategy to a successful conclusion. So how might all of that work for you? We see your way forward as follows, and we can help you with any or all of the following picture. We feel that it is vitally important to start with a baseline survey to really understand where you want to focus your efforts and to objectively evaluate your progress. The survey results should be used to develop a clear strategy for the way forward and a shared vision for how the leadership team wants this to impact the performance of their organisation and the way that it works. The potential for what we have been talking about is huge, but it will only be realised if the leadership team choose to grasp that potential and make it their own. They may choose to take it stepwise and pilot it first until they find their bearings, but the ownership for whatever happens needs to rest with them. Once they have developed their strategy, they need to communicate it and set up the relevant infrastructure in the form of messages and metrics and technology to make sure that it will be effectively supported. Once the infrastructure is in place, the people who will be using the web-based meetings need to be trained on those new approaches, both those who will structure and lead the meetings and those who will need to efficiently participate in those structures. For best results, the training will have both a live element and a degree of self-study and practice to reinforce the messages. The training we are talking about here should not be a sheep dip type approach. Our people will be making a paradigm shift, going against centuries of traditional practice, and they need to be supported through a progressive development of their understanding. For this reason, IFACIL structures its training around two communities of practice, one for participants and one for leaders, so that people can work together to develop shared insights and gradually assimilate a new reality for meetings. Membership of the communities is for 12 months, but that does not mean that you will need to wait a year for results, and we expect that you should be getting the initial benefits within 2 weeks of starting the training programme. Conservatively, we envisage this to be around 25% of the travel budget for those who have done the training, but that still makes the training self-funding within the quarter. Once people have become more established in the new paradigm and the approaches are more natural and less alien to them, we can build with more advanced programs still within the communities of learning. Advanced participation looks at engaging in the extended range of collaboration techniques that are available to use within or in parallel with synchronous meetings. And advanced facilitation is a very hands-on program which equips people to better understand the psychology of good meeting design and to extend their understanding of how to influence a successful outcome. All of these programs are supported by updates and special events within the community. For the leadership team, we envisage this to be the ideal point to review the entire situation, repeating the surveys where appropriate and refining their strategy to better achieve their vision. While at this point the full travel savings should have been realised and the investment paid for several times over, the benefits should only just be beginning. The transformation of the meeting process, the lifeblood and the nervous system of the organisation needs to be harnessed effectively to ambitious intent. And your vision and strategy need to develop as and when you grasp the true potential of what you can achieve through better meetings. There is of course an upfront cost, but it is not as high as you might imagine. Overall, you may be looking to budget something around the figures at the bottom of the page, but we recommend that the programme fees are paid for directly by participants out of their travel budgets. Doing so explicitly ties the programme with where the immediate benefits need to be drawn and reflects a personal commitment to use the training to make a change in behaviour. We believe that we have made a good case, but a case is only as good as the credibility of the person who delivered it, and to be frank, you may not know who we are. And so, please let us briefly correct that. We are IFACIL, And we specialise in equipping people and organisations to utilise the full potential of web-based collaboration through whatever means are necessary. We have a background in consultancy and a track record in transforming organisations through systematic and creative approaches. And a key part of this work has been the development of management to adopt advanced facilitative approaches to their work. As you will now be aware, we are also heavily involved in meetings research and have an expanding database across a range of organisations and industries. And we have extensive experience of change management across a range of well-known and respected organisations. But if you would like to know a bit more about us and our ideas, the best thing is to visit us online at www.ifacil.com, where you will find a wealth of articles and resources to answer your questions.